One of the things that has garnered a lot of attention, especially from folks on the right, which I think was initially dismissed, but seems to be gaining more traction in states like New Hampshire, is this idea that at some point under the 14th Amendment, Section 3, which talks about anyone, who is engaged in insurrection, that they will be removed from the ballot. And the Secretary of State in New Hampshire has said that he is seeking an opinion from the Attorney General. Now, let me play this out for you a second. You take New Hampshire, Michigan, maybe Pennsylvania, and say, we're going to remove him from because of the 14th Amendment, because he engaged in an insurrection, even though he's never been charged with an insurrection, he's been guilty, whatever. But play this out for me. And then there's an election where almost by default, Trump will be enabled to get 270 electoral votes. Would there be any recourse?
Of course, there would be recourse to the Supreme Court. The problem is that, Professor Lawrence Tribe and Judge Ludick have made up this story. I know the 14th Amendment as well as they do. It was designed to make sure that people who fought for the South in the Civil War didn't get elected to state or federal positions. The amendment itself has all kind of provisions in it that show it's related to the Civil War. It talks about enslaved people. It talks about paying the debts of the southern states. It talks about all the things relating to the Civil War. And then suddenly they interpret this as self-enforcing. There's no process. This doesn't say it has to be part of an indictment. It doesn't say the Senate has to do it or the House has to do it. With impeachment, we have a process. With the 25th Amendment, we have a process. With the 14th Amendment, it's, quote, self-enforcing, which means Lawrence Tribe and Judge Ludick can say, we have an opinion that we think he's engaged in insurrection or rebellion. And if the Secretary of State, who nobody's ever heard of, concludes that, he determines who the next president of the United States is. Do you really think the framers of the 14th Amendment had that undemocratic, anti-democratic view in mind? No, obviously not. This is made up by radical zealots, some of them Republicans, by the way, like Judge Ludick, who are part of the Get Trump posse. They're so anti-Trump, they're prepared to destroy the Constitution. They're prepared to use any means toward the end of getting Trump. And that's why it's so important for Democrats like me and liberals to fight against my fellow Democrats who are misusing the Constitution for their own partisan political ends. For me, the Constitution is more important than party affiliation.
Okay, so this is where I need your help then, because so let's just hypothetically say, for the sake of argument, that New Hampshire, Michigan, Pennsylvania remove Trump from the ballot. I have long believed that, unless he could get an immediate relief on that ballot, that there would be an election and the Dems would say, well, sorry, the election happened. You say the Supreme Court. When would the Supreme Court intervene, and would there be enough time? Because part of the problem is once the ballots are printed, he wasn't on it. And you can't.
Believe me, I understand that. I represented the people who were victimized by the butterfly ballot in Palm Beach.
Okay, and what's the recourse then once the election happens?
The recourse is it would be an illegitimate election. If Trump was disqualified in enough states that could have put him over the top, the election would be illegitimate. And the Supreme Court hopefully would hold that before the election. It might have to have an extreme remedy, postponing the election for a week or 10 days, or making ballots printed on an emergency 24/7 basis. One would hope you wouldn't have to undo an election and call for a new election day. That's never happened in American history, even during the Civil War, even during the First and Second World Wars. We always have our elections on the right day. But these radical anti-Trump zealots like Tribe and Ludick are destroying democracy. They're calling for remedies that would undo the right of people in certain states to cast their ballot. That's just unconstitutional. Everybody over the age of, we fought so hard to change the Constitution. Black people can vote, women can vote, young people can vote, but Republicans can't vote, according to Lawrence Tribe and Ludick, because they're afraid they might vote for Donald Trump. And electing Donald Trump, they think, is worse than destroying the Constitution. I don't agree.